We often see people who never recover after the accident, after the loss of a relationship, never recover after the war, after the house was burgled. Some fall in a heap. Others go on talking about it over and over. And some of us remain angry for years. We do know other people who have a great success in life, a number of achievements, or they've been through a colourful experience of some kind, and then they go downhill. They start making a mess of things, wrong decisions, and an unlived life begins to follow afterwards. I'm reading again one of Michael Eigen's books. It's called Emotional Storm. And he describes a man he calls Hardy. Hardy looks a healthy man. He is outgoing, amiable, lives a decent life. In fact, by all accounts, he is a decent man. But he has recurring asthma, recurring colds, blocked sinuses. Low-grade illnesses are constantly part of his life. He goes off to the doctors, he takes the medications, but his life is one irritation after another. None of his complaints is life-threatening. He will live, but how will he live, and in what condition? He may not die from any of these conditions, but they're not life-threatening, but life is threatening. He says, my wife resents me, and I resent her because she doesn't support me. I have to move past this resentment because I can see it's eating me up. I don't know what will happen if she doesn't get past her anger, but I know I have to move past mine for my sake, if not ours. So here we are hearing about a man and the story. And here's the question. How will he live his life? It's about how he meets his life. It's about what life is doing to him and what he will do to it. And the question is there. What can he do with his chance to live life? Because he's only going to get one chance to live life. So what does it mean to live life after 40, 60, 80, or after the event, the experience at any age? So in contrast to Hardy, I'm going to tell you the story of a young boy. I found out about him from this book, which is called Written in Bones. Written in Bones. How Human Remains Unlock the Secrets of the Dead. The young boy has become known as the Turkana boy. In 1984, his bones were discovered in the swamplands near Lake Turkana in Kenya. We know virtually nothing about him, about this boy, or his family, where he came from, who lived around him, how he came to be in that spot. But his bones have told us an astonishing story. That he lived 1.5 million years ago. That he was like us in just about every respect in his physique. That he died of an infected molar tooth. Full adult, was never reached by this adolescent lad because they had no antibiotics that would have saved his life in a matter of a couple of days. I read this amazing story, and I was at first touched with a little sadness that this adolescent boy did not get the chance to live a full life as all of our adolescent boys and girls would get with such a complaint. And then I was affected greatly by the grown man Hardy and his wife. Both of them consumed in their daily resentment and discontent. It is surely a deeply moving moment, at least for me, that in Melbourne in 2013, we can reflect on the bones of a boy found in a swamp in Kenya after 1.5 million years. Lived but a short life, but he today encouraged us to ponder how we might live. How we might live. The psalm said to us today, something draws us to reach beyond our smaller life to that larger view. So often we get so enclosed that we don't realise that we're part of a long train of humanity. More than 1.5 million years of it. People trying to live their life. And what an extraordinary life we have by virtue of how they lived and how they died. And how we can now live longer and postpone our death as they were never able to do. So we hear this modern day story of Hardy. I dare say nobody will find his bones 1 million years after he lived. But the question is there. He has a life. He will live it from now on. Even after today he will live. It's all afterwards. So often we are really living forwards. Well, we are living forwards, aren't we? But so much we are caught up and tangled in what happened before. So we're living after what happened. We're all living in the time we know as afterwards, after the war, after the earthquake, after we left home, after we were sacked in the job, after your trip, after your father died, your mother died, husband, wife. How did you live after your operation? After your marriage ended? Afterwards? So often we stop living in our afterwards. And the psalm again said, after our losses, there are seeds of a new tomorrow. And that sounds very attractive until you collide with this reality, your realization. You're not looking for seeds for tomorrow. You're wanting your life to blossom now. If only. Professor Robert Kahn of the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor in Michigan. In an article, one of my journal articles, he wrote this. Everyone's common experience involves accidents, illnesses, losses, bereavements, crises with your children, retirement, voluntary and involuntary, moves from one home to another, and we could add changes in relationships and friendships, upgrading and downgrading in jobs, our engagements with different groups and our disengagement, our vulnerabilities and our frailties, all that. How successfully do we deal with these life events? How do we live afterwards? What effect do these events have on our happiness and contentment, our health and well-being, and our self-image and self-worth? We're living in our afterwards. How do we do it? I'm going to put to you four possible stories, four stories that will possibly draw you to reflect a little further on this question. We expect things to remain the same. We believe in continuity. If only things would be the same afterwards. After the war, the same. After retirement, the same. After the accident. No, they're not. After the event, everything changes. How do we live afterwards? Way back in several years ago, several decades ago in fact, I spent a great deal of time studying Ray Lawler's play, Summer of the 17th Doll. Many of you know it. He cast the play in an almost ugly Australian vernacular, but it nevertheless was quickly named as Australia's first notable existential play of enormous significance. It showed not only the life of two rough cane cutters wrestling with their, after the 15th doll that they brought back, the 16th doll, all that, but it also showed the humanness of our human beings trying to keep alive relationships that have now been outgrown. Always repeating the same behaviour at the end of the cane season. The 17th doll, these men came back after the cane season with another doll for their girlfriend. The 17th doll, however, didn't work as the 16th or the 15th or the etc. The 17th year, perhaps they didn't notice that they were older now, that things didn't work as they once did. So in the terrible afterwards of disappointment and frustration, of the girls being now in their middle years, and the wild partying that they once knew was now flat in these latter days, and the vast frustration that had now supplanted what they always expected would be fun. So after the whatevers, some relationships can be successfully and enjoyably recreated. But sometimes life has so much moved on, it is no longer as it was. So that's the first example I give of our afterwards. To reflect on, do we know it? Do we respond to it? The second glimpse of our humanity, I will call up Noah. Noah from the Old Testament myth. The story said he read the signs. A huge flood was coming. Well, the Bible doesn't say he read the signs so much. It said God told him so. God instructed him on the size of the ark that he was to build and so on. Whether you believe that story in that detail, it doesn't much matter. Whatever you make of the story, it is very cleverly told. And the imagery, I think, is mind-boggling. Imagine Noah and his crowd locked up in that primitive boat. The noise, the stench, the quarrelling, and waiting for the waters to subside. Do you need the story to be literally true to say, yeah, we can understand what that would be like? Well, let the afterwards part of the story be a psychological description of a man when it was all over. You see, after he let them out, after he was given a new start in life, he got to work and planted a vineyard. And he was successful in planting the vineyard. And having done all that, he then was found lying exhausted in his tent, naked and drunk, if you please, and an embarrassment to his sons. So they covered him up. So although he had successfully managed the flood part, the ark part, the vineyard part, he could not manage the afterwards. It could touch something in any one of us. We manage the big challenges, but when it is past, we sometimes fall in a heap. So not only our failures, but our successes too can be a problem to us. And we behave in ways that we wish we had not. We drink too much, we eat too much, we overspend, we make stupid decisions, we gamble our life away in our afterwards. So I come to the third person. I mentioned a moment ago Professor Robert Kahn, Professor of Psychology at Ann Arbor in Michigan. I knew him there. He was an astonishing, exciting person, always a breath of fresh air. Author, would you believe it, of 150 books and papers on the psychological and social research. For 22 years, his research focused on aging. At age 88, he and his wife were going out to dine with friends in a restaurant in Ann Arbor. They parked their car on the third floor of the car park, and as they walked to the lift, a car came roaring round, as they often do, and smashed into them, causing them extensive long-term injury. And the story says, as his long rehabilitation began, Professor Carr challenged himself to apply the lessons of his own book to regain his health and get back to work. And would you believe it, at age 90, he was still in his office, getting to his office at 9:30 in the morning. I wonder why so late. Each day, the same office that he occupied for 60 years. 3 afternoons a week, he took time out to walk on the treadmill and do weights, getting himself fit again. When asked about end-of-life matters, he said, well, when you're 90, you're somewhere near the end of your life. Got to be. It doesn't feel like the end, but statistically, demographically, there can't be much left. But that's not part of my daily baggage. So there he is in his several afterwards, warmly, enthusiastically, breathing the same life-enhancing personality that I knew and saw in him several decades ago. His story reminded me of Bertrand Russell's words, written to his friend Lady Ottilie Morel, way back in 1918, in fact. He said, I loved life and real people. I believed in laughter and spontaneity and trusted to nature to bring out the genuine good in people. And the scripture went on. All his life, he had lived in pursuit of a vision, to allow moments of insight to give wisdom at more mundane times. And he dreamt of the day when hate and greed and envy would not be there because there'd be nothing to nourish them. The fourth. Recently in a radio program, I heard a person reminding us of the prefix "un" that we put in front of our verbs. You load the cart, you unload it. You lock the door, you unlock it, and so on. But then as I stood and watched men and women at the bowling club yesterday, I emphasise, I thought you can bowl, but you can't unbowl. And as I walked away, I thought, you can cut the rose, but you can't uncut it. You can plant the tree, but you can't unplant it. You can write a letter, but you can't unwrite it. You can do certain things, but not undo them. For example, you can speak venomously to your mother, or your brother, or your boss, or someone, but you can't unspeak it. And so this is meant to show that some things you can't unmake certain things. We therefore need to make something new. And that's a good part about both Old and New Testaments of our Bible, because they keep talking about after certain things have happened, you can make things new. Indeed, certain things become new. So if the tree you planted is dying, you can't unplant it, but you plant another tree. If the rose you cut has now gone, the petals have fallen off, you plant a new rose. In our afterwards, we can see that it is time to build something new. Time to rearrange the pieces of the jigsaw. Time to find different ways of speaking. You can't unspeak, so let's speak differently. So I've named 4 ways to restructure or reposition our life in the afterwards. To realise that if you're expecting the things to be the same afterwards, then you're not facing your reality. We need to adapt to a new reality, something new. Sometimes when you've been successful and things fall apart, we then have to rebuild. Yes, you can celebrate the success, but then we need to take it further. We need to find that energy and enthusiasm in the afterwards. The need to grow new things when old things have gone. We need to adapt and grow. We need to intercept our destructiveness, sometimes our self-destructiveness. Even when we don't realise we're being self-destructive, we need someone else to say, it's time to intercept that. We need to learn and be inspired by others' enthusiasms. We need to see how important it is to reconstruct, to rebuild, to find a new source of life and pleasure. And what do we need for it? We need a new attitude, new thinking, new ways, new faith. After our losses, there are seeds for a new tomorrow, the psalmist says. It says in our afterwards, we look forward with anticipation. Look backward, if you like, but constructively. The seeds are given. Will we provide the right climate, the right environment for their growth? We all have that possibility of tomorrow. The seeds are there, but will we help them to grow? I did a little thinking and I thought, well, all that is good. That's good. But what about me? So I began to think, you'll probably say, yes, he's telling us what we should do. Is he any good at it himself? So I wondered, what about my afterwards? Whatever the thing that has occurred. That has occurred. Now afterwards, I look for new enrichments for my life. I explore new and larger boundaries beyond the present ones. I try to do some healing in the unhealed places. I look to identify the sources of inspiration. And I am astonished, awestruck, that people today, and over 1.5 million years, have become and can become life enhancers, reflecting on what life can be. Astonished. And I ask myself, is there an energy, a goodness, a strength to help me be a bigger self? Will I recognise that every so often, through the lifespan, we're given another chance, a new chance. And with that new chance, the energy is there, the seeds for a new tomorrow. Would you please stand? Say with me, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And the blessing. May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forwards. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.